This is Elaine Winston, a talented quilter at Crowsdale Village. At first glance, these hands seem to introduce merely the story of a skilled quilter's love for her craft. And when I first met Elaine, I thought that was what I would find. She was shy and reserved, albeit pleasant, but I wondered who exactly she was. I later came to realize that although calling Elaine a quilter is a somewhat accurate description, it barely begins to scratch the surface of the woman behind the seams. Elaine's love for quilting comes from her past, specifically her grandmother, who taught her how to hold a needle and thread during her childhood in Pennsylvania.
I slept under quilts when I was a child. I watched my grandmother quilt. I sat beside my grandmother.
Soon enough, her creative hobby became not just a hobby, but a way of life. More specifically, nightlife.
I went to fashion design school in Boston on Newbury Street, and I would come home from class by 10 o'clock, so excited about it and so energized.
This infectious love for all things color and design leads Elaine to share her passions with others. She enjoys celebrating her love for quilting with friends as a part of quilting groups that meet several times a month. But it doesn't take long to realize that her quilting groups are less about quilting and more about the conversations and connections she forges with others. There's a lot of laughter, a lot of eating, and a tiny bit of intense concentration. And although a self-proclaimed introvert, it's clear by the reactions of everyone around her that Elaine is a magnetic personality, enveloping her friends and family not with boisterous joking and banter, but rather with quiet warmth and understanding. Whether it be through admiring the talents of a fellow quilter, or serving up a warm fig cake as the perfect hostess, Elaine is the kind of person that finds joy in the smallest of things. Because every day has something to look forward to, and she lights up her own life by injecting creativity and a colorful spirit in everything she does. Chief among what makes her life sparkle is Al, Elaine's husband.
It started with a blind date, and we've been married for 45 years.
They can both tend to be on the quieter side and are witty, kind, and introspective. Most importantly, they have a beautiful life together. Al brings out a side of Elaine that is light and chatty, while Elaine brings out a fellow supporter in Al.
Even in our home that we had before Crowsdale, he even built a room onto the house, so I would have a design room.
It's not all quilts, though. When she's not holding a needle and thread, Elaine is instead holding a violin and bow, as a string section member of Crowsdale's musical group, Rusty Pipes. Elaine is quick to point out that her skills are rusty, as per the name of the group, but for her, it's about the fun she has, and as an important part of her history, is just as meaningful to her as quilting.
I grew up listening to my grandfather and some family friends, and my dad played banjo, my mother the piano, and we had neighbors who played different instruments, and they would gather in.
Elaine also takes a break from creative expression to expressions of compassion. As a volunteer at Urban Ministries, one task that Elaine engages in is making sandwiches for homeless members of Durham's population, bringing the same zest for the everyday and attention to detail as she does with everything else in her life. So it is clear that Elaine is more than just a quilter. But then who is she? Perhaps the objects that can best attempt to encapsulate Elaine as a person are her memory quilts. One quilt in particular, full of intricate details from her parents' wedding, such as lace and newspaper clippings, displays the kind of quilter Elaine is: detail-oriented, highly skilled, and incredibly creative. But look at more of these quilts side by side, such as a cheerful scene that is reminiscent of her sister and her playing outside, and one gets a sense of the kind of person Elaine is. Whether admiring patterns in quilting books, filling her days with music, or deep in conversation with friends and loved ones, Elaine sees beauty in the everyday. It's the little details that matter to her, the small moments in day-to-day life. She's not one for grandiose gestures. She finds the most value in a simple life filled with ups and downs that remind her of the joys of living.
Find something good about each day, because you don't know what the next day is going to bring. It may be a real struggle, and it may be a joy, a total joy, but you don't know what you're going to be facing the next day.
So, to answer the question of who Elaine Winston is, well, she's a quilter, but she's also a wife, friend, designer, musician, volunteer, and incredible baker. She's humorous, kind, deeply thoughtful, and most of all, a lover of all things that make life worth living.